Coming. Couple of thank yous. Also, Therese Miller, who got us this lovely space. Zach Schmitz, class of '99, provided some of the beer, the Crazy Mountain beer that you have there. He just went over there. I don't think he's here tonight. He had a meeting. But what I'm going to do is, I'm Colin St. John. I'm the Director of Alumni Relations, class of 2001. I've met most of you, but I just wanted to reintroduce myself. And this is our annual town hall. Kind of a state of the school. You know, the fellows usually like to know what's going on at the girls division because we obviously didn't, a lot of us here didn't have that experience. So we'll, open up the questions later. I'm going to have everyone on the panel. I'm going to pass the microphone and they can introduce themselves real briefly. And then Father Steele is going to sort of kick it off with a little bit of a summary and the direction that we're looking to go tonight. And then we'll start taking questions from you guys to the panel, either to specific members of the panel or to the panel in general. So thanks again for coming. Here, let me pass the mic.
Hello, I'm Jordy Bain. I'm a senior. I play football, and I'm a rowdy. Yeah.
My name is Cameron Butler, and I'm a junior. I play football, and I run track.
My name is Tim Bauer. I graduated class of 1988 from the Old North Campus, and I taught at Regis from 94 to 2000 when it was just the boys' school, and then I came back in 05, and I'm teaching at the girls' school now, and I teach social studies.
I'm Phil Steele from the class of 66, and I'm a rowdy too.
I'm Missy Franklin. I swim. And I am graduating in 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 weeks, 1 day, and something like 5 hours. So
it's not that soon, not 2 weeks. I'm Adam Dawkins. I graduated in '98, and I've been back teaching at Regis for 8 years now. And I teach journalism at the boys division and the girls division and advise the student broadcast and media.
Hi, I'm John Sheridan. I'm class of 76. I was a swimmer. I am the chairman of the Board of Trustees, and thank you all for coming.
I don't want to take too long. I'm not going to deliver like a state of the school address or anything like that, but I thought it could be helpful just to get a brief overview of some of the important things, at least from my perspective, about what's going on at the school right now, and then I'm as anxious as you are to hear from everybody else on the panel. So let me just begin by saying that currently our enrollment is 900 boys and 685 girls. So I think we're about the third largest Jesuit high school in the U.S., third or fourth. People are eager to know about applications and incoming freshmen. We had in the boys division, we're targeting a class of 235, and there were 297 acceptances. In the girls division, we're targeting a class of 185, and there were 257 acceptances, knowing that there are some kids who are accepted who are still deciding and will eventually decide not to enroll. We had about 100 more completed apps than target size in each division. So some of those completed apps end up being put on a wait list or turned down or make another decision. But we did have definitely a record number of apps in the girls division, and people say, oh, it's the Missy factor. And it's certainly, Missy has been unbelievable as a spokesman and as someone who has been the best that we could put out there from Regis Jesuit, and we're all so tremendously proud of her. But I know she would be the first to say that it's not all about Missy. There's lots of great things happening at the school, and some of the things that I so I know even if Missy had never come to Regis Jesuit, we've been kind of on a roll, but she's put us over the top, I think, in so many ways. One of the things to note is that we have a new principal in the boys division this year, Mr. Alan Carruthers from Canada, and he went through a long, complicated process to get his visa, and so he's completely legal now. He's doing a great job. He's made a really good start. I think he has the trust of the faculty, and he's a great addition. This is the 10th year of the girls division, believe it or not. So we've been, we haven't had any big celebrations yet, but Jeff Howard has put out a weekly kind of where are they now, some of the early faculty members, and just telling a little bit of the history. And it's kind of amazing to think that the school does have a history now that's 10 years old, so that's unbelievable. Last week we had Kairos 93 in the boys division. This week Kairos 32 in the girls division goes out tomorrow. That's pretty amazing. Those of you who are from 94 on and were part of those early number 1, 2, 3, 4 Kairos. It's amazing that's 93 and 32 now. We have a great freshman retreat that we started a few years ago. We're in the middle of an iPad pilot program, and I'm pretty sure in 2 years we will have, every student will have an iPad. I'm pretty sure that's where it's going, but we want to take next year to make sure we have iPads in the hands of all the faculty so that they can get up to speed and know what they're doing with them. But I think that's certainly changing education, and it's changing how textbooks are used, and we could say a lot about that. Next year we're going to be introducing Mandarin Chinese, 2 classes, and for the first time we're going to be teaming with the International School, which is a school where that they have a number of teachers from other countries and other languages, and we're going to share. Probably it'll be 2 different Chinese teachers part-time, but we'll be sharing with them. So that's another program that we're very excited about. I don't need to say too much about athletics because that gets a lot of press, but just to highlight that our boys won the state golf tournament again this year. Of course, the girls won the state swimming title, which is fantastic. Basketball, both of our teams are in the Sweet 16. The girls play tomorrow and the boys play Wednesday at school. Hockey made the Final Four. We have a new baseball coach, Mike Anderson, who was the Nebraska baseball coach, and he's going to be not quite as high profile as Walt Weiss, but I think he's made a great beginning. I think he's going to have a big impact. And then just one side note, we're going to need to replace the 2 artificial turf fields this summer because they've reached the end of their safe life. So that's a pretty major event, major expense. You all know about the campaign. We just topped the $16 million mark in pledges and gifts a week or so ago. And so we're continue on our way towards our goal of 20 million, and it's for endowment and for a building. And earlier, about a month ago, the trustees voted to go ahead with groundbreaking for the building. So that's the 27th of March. The construction will begin shortly after that, and by this time next year, we should be operational in the building. I'm very excited by it. It's going to include a 490-seat theater, instrumental and choral music spaces, and other ancillary spaces on the second floor. The first floor is going to be a student commons with a college counseling center, a communications center that Adam is very excited about because he's done so much with our media and wants to expand more and more into TV. So that's going to be located there. Our alumni office will be there, and a small kind of kitchen, snack bar, and a Raider shop, one Raider shop for the whole school. It'll be a very cool space, and I think it's going to make a huge difference in the campus and allow us to do some things differently and better than we've been able to do them before. Just the last thing is this is the 40th anniversary of LARC, our dinner auction, and we're trying to bring back as many of the old chairs as we can. They're not all old, but former chairs, I should say. Most of them aren't here, but and really make a big celebration of it. It's going to be located at the at the National Western Complex. And it's going to allow us to expand to as many people as want to come, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So those are kind of the highlights, and it doesn't mean that your questions have to be confined to any of those areas that I highlighted, but I just wanted to start with an overview of some of what I think are the exciting things that are happening. So I know that especially if you, I know Missy doesn't want to be the focus, the center of attention, but I know that some of you will have questions for her and for the panel. Missy does need to leave at 6:30, so if you do have questions for Missy, speak them out earlier rather than later. So.
They have me on the Madonna microphone, so you guys can keep that one. Is this working okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's working.
So, yep, Brian.
Do you need me to mic up for the broadcasting, or can I?
Nope. Go ahead. Yep.
So, thank you, Missy, for introducing my 4-year-old who's now memorized what will call me. Now got that in the house playing all the time. But actually, my first question is to each of the current students. I would love to hear your own take on a comparison between Regis and what I would consider the other schools that somewhat compete, Valor, Mullen, potentially match up if you think that way. But just your own personal take on it, maybe what others perceive or what you guys perceive to be the comparison between Regis and those other schools, including Missy.
I mean, I have a few friends who go to, I grew up in Parker my whole life pretty much, so the only really school that I would know other kids from is Valor. And honestly, like, none of the kids who I know who go to Valor really like it there. I think that there's kind of a big, I don't know, I think the kids at Valor kind of have a big ego. I mean, I'm not saying all of them, I don't want to generalize like that, but some of them definitely do. And I think at Regis, at least with my friend group, we're kind of more humble almost, and we're kind of all about the brotherhood, you know, what can we do for each other more than what can we do for ourselves. So that's really the main difference I've come across.
I don't know much about Valor and Mullen and all those other schools, but a lot of the times the kids at Regis will say that Regis is so much better than those schools because we have the brotherhood, but honestly, I don't see that idea of brotherhood. It's basically either you're part of a sports team or some other like clique, and if you're not, then you're just there. So I don't really notice a big difference between Regis, Mullen, and Valor.
Okay, so when I was looking at high schools, I was supposed to go to Arapahoe. That was my feeder school, and so I looked at Arapahoe, Creek, and then Regis. And for me, the feeling was different as soon as you walked in the door. Like, it was just as simple as that for me. I mean, all the schools that I looked at were incredible, but I mean, when I walked into Regis, you have that homey feeling that I didn't get anywhere else, and I knew that that was someplace that I could be comfortable in and someplace that I could really just be myself in and just open up. And this idea of the brotherhood and the sisterhood, I've really, really felt that so strongly over the past 4 years, and I feel like it's very special to go to a school where I'm best friends with every single person in my grade and the 3 grades below me.
Okay. Anybody? Joe?
In terms of how would you, what are you looking at in terms of your applicants? What gives them a leg up?
Well, trying to find the right balance of qualities is what our goal is, and we've talked about. Regis Jesuit High School has always been an academically challenging environment, but when we went to school, enrollment was decided on solely on the basis of the entrance exam, and it took the top whatever number it was. Those were the ones that got the acceptances. It's much more complicated than that. And I'm going to pass the microphone to John Sheridan in a minute to talk about the whole special needs area, because you have to look at the numbers. You have to look at how kids test, how they perform in school, how they, whether we look at their faculty recommendations, their essays, how they write, how they express themselves. We look at their involvement and we ask them to write an essay about what they think they can bring to the school as well as what they can get from it. Of course, we're a Catholic school, and we continue to get our classes. A couple of them have fallen a little below 70%, but we're working hard. That's what we kind of feel the natural number is for, and it's been that way since the school moved south. It's been about 70% Catholic. But our diversity in terms of religion, ethnicity, geography, economics, that's important to us as well. We accept, we don't consider need when we're making our acceptances. So we're not, trying to do a certain percentage of full pay tuitions and a certain percentage of tuition assistance. We work that out after the acceptances are done. But it's a variety of factors, and we're really getting great kids, across the board. And some kids come for athletics, but I always feel like there's a lot of different doors into the school, but you hope that the kids that are there will get the whole picture and will come out the door that helps shape them into full human beings. But I did want to ask John to say a little bit about the special needs, because I think that's a different, something that's happening that hasn't happened in the same way before.
Thank you, Father Steele. Going to the, talking about the kids coming into the school, it's not an easy school to get into, but when you get into the school, you're very proud. They're very well-rounded kids, and it's not always about being the smartest kid in the class. A lot of these kids have special needs issues that they've had since they were elementary school, and they recently had them diagnosed, or maybe they don't even have them diagnosed yet. So what we've done at Regis Jesuit is we've created a program in both boys' schools and girls' schools, set up an office, set up counseling, set up testing, provided testing if they can't afford it, and see what these kids need. Now, when you look at a special needs kid, it's kind of the opposite of what you would think. These kids are really smart kids. They come to Regis, and our program has grown over the last 4 or 5 years that it actually helps these kids get very, very good grades. Recently, there was a kid who graduated last year. He got more scholarship money than his entire family, the parents said, since, all the kids went through. These kids have the opportunity to learn at our school, to get exceptional grades, and take the ACT, SAT, and move on and get into very good colleges with a lot of scholarship money. So we've kind of changed our focus recently. We're getting a reputation of having a very good special needs program, and we're proud of that. So we have more kids that come. So we're going to have to find the faculty and the staff to support those kids. But we're proud to say that we have that program, and I think it's just another sign of Regis doing the right thing.
Maybe Adam or Tim would have a teacher's perspective on it.
I've been on the admissions reading committee for 3 years out of the 8 years that I've been teaching at Regis, and I have to say, going back to what Father Steele said about the applicants' file folders, there are so many things in there. We read every single piece, and after months and months of study and work by our admissions directors, then the reading team goes. One year was at a condo in Silverthorne for 3 days, and we hole ourselves up there, and we read every single file, and we read them twice, and sometimes 3 or 4 times. And so we really take a look at every applicant and every piece of it, and So it's very thorough, and all of those things that Father Steele mentioned, we look at.
I've never been a part of the admissions team, so I'm not sure what the application, what kinds of things are going into the file. But I know on the receiving end, when those students come into my class, and this is, I think this was true back when I was a student, and I think it's true when I taught in the boys' school, and it's true now that the overall makeup of the students is one of seekers. They're searchers. They have great potential to do marvelous things, and not just academically. I mean, obviously we get really top kids academically, but we get those kids who are really interested in pushing themselves in other areas as well. And to me, I think the question that you asked the students earlier about what's the comparison, and I feel like we're really pushing our kids to be not just the grade earners, but the life learners, and to go out from Regis and keep learning and keep pushing themselves in any capacity they can. And I feel like those are the kids we get that are across the board. Those are the kids we get that are the strongest. And I don't know. I just think it's a really neat environment for kids of all abilities and kids who have all kinds of different desires. It's a perfect environment for them to kind of search out anything they want to do.
Okay. Any follow-up to that? You good, Joe?
Just a couple of things. Where does legacy play into admissions? And with your special needs students, I'm assuming online after school is essential. If the student doesn't have access or the computers to function with the assignments online.
Okay, Joe, I'm just doing this for the internet. Joe's question on the follow-up was about special needs and also, what was the first part?
Legacy.
Legacy. And do you want to answer that?
Well, this legacy question has come up recently, and the admissions people are saying it's at the point now where a huge percentage of the applicants can claim some kind of legacy. Whether it's children of alums, that's a relatively small part of it. But siblings, and with two divisions, boys and girls, brothers and sisters, we have a huge number of kids, and we really do. The two admissions directors have worked hard to work together when there's one or other where there's a student that we think is maybe on a borderline kid or somebody that really doesn't look like they're going to thrive at Regis Jesuit. The two talk together, and we've tried to make phone calls to families when we've decided a certain direction or we're leaning a certain direction. And sometimes we do interview some students and families where there's issues, and we say, and the hope is that, our whole intention is to guide kids to the best place for them. And it might not be Regis Jesuit, and that's hard for families that have been plugged in for, maybe one or two or three of their kids, and maybe the fourth one isn't a good fit. But you don't want to bring kids in that you really believe are not going to be able to make it. So that legacy thing it's tricky, but it is at the point where most applicants are some legacy or other. The special needs, I'm not intimately familiar with all of the different issues and resources, but for some kids it's just extra time on exams or a certain kind of help, or I think the iPad or tools like that have tremendous potential for helping kids organize, take notes. So if they need, some of them can record a lecture and listen to it again. So there's all different ways of reinforcing whatever some of their issues are. So I think this technology, there's some challenging things about technology, but I think there's some really great potential there as well.
Okay. Any, next question. Mr. Beatty?
So first I want to
And now, you know, as a dad who has a daughter, I mean, there's many guys from my class in here. I'm just trying to forecast out, Father and John, maybe you can speak to this a little better, but 10 years down the road, you know, when we're thinking of education, is there any way to forecast, you know, what we're looking at for tuition costs? I'll give this to John.
So the question's about tuition cost.
I'm not afraid of that question. We recently, we're building this Performing Arts Center. And what has happened in this is we've taken the debt of our school at historic lows and we refinanced it. And to say we were fortunate would be an understatement. We truly got an amazing loan package that our school can help, will not have a problem with paying our debts over the years. What's interesting about this, it opens the doors for conversations about our tuition structure. What I hear so often, it's the middle class of the schools that we're being afraid of shutting out. We have 26% of our students are on some type of financial aid right now, and then there's the families that can afford our tuition no matter what. There's the middle of the road of the middle class who we have to keep an eye on to make sure that they can afford Regis. We have a lot, we are not, by building this new building and redoing our financing, we're not locking ourselves in. It affords the Board of Trustees to look at a lot of different financial planning angles over the next couple years. Some may be that we don't need a tuition increase as much. Maybe we have other ways to fund the student, the gap that we have in our student right now. It's about $1,500, $1,800 that basically every kid who comes here who pays tuition gets a $1,500 to $1,800 scholarship. We talk about closing that gap, but at the end of the day, we're still going to have to raise about $2 million a year to cover PACE and everything else where the money's needed. I know you're concerned. I talk to parents who have kids that are in 5th, 6th, 7th grade, and they're really concerned about the pace of how fast tuition's increasing. And by the time their daughter or son gets to Regis, what is that number going to be? We're going to take a long look at that. We've heard you guys speak. We know that you're concerned about that, and we're going to talk about that in our retreat this year at our, for the Board of Trustees in June about the flexibility that we now have given the great terms on our existing debt. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Okay. I'll just add one or two quick things about that too. You know, I share the concern for sure. And it's been a concern for decades, literally. I've served on boards for quite a few years, and every year when it comes time to talk about the tuition for the following year, the board agonizes over it because, and it's been, you know, we don't want to price the people we don't want to, you know, substantially change the composition of our school and price out the families that have traditionally been part of our school. But I also I know that from working in the campaign that alumni and parents are very supportive of what we've tried to do for the faculty, which has been a huge part of the tuition increases in recent years. And I think we all know that our tuition was kept artificially low for a long time because our salaries were kept low. I mean, the salaries are the biggest single factor in our budget. The other thing that, you know, John Jackson is around here somewhere. He's our new vice president. Oh, he's back there. Our new vice president of advancement. He and I took a little road trip to Cincinnati in December just for one day to visit St. Xavier High School and to talk to their advancement people. And what both of us were struck by was the number, their percentage of alumni participation in their fundraising is 35%, and ours is 7%. And I say that just because I know that that's an area that will help us in the future to build our endowment so that the pressure can be moderated on tuition, because I think that's absolutely essential that we have a healthy endowment to help us, because that tuition assistance is the biggest piece of our fundraising, and it's every year, and the needs are every year. So I didn't mean to be that commercial, but
Get that rate up, fellas. I think Missy has to leave in 5 or 10, so I don't know if anybody has a question for her and the boys or the students. We'll go. Well, let's go with one non-Beatty first. Yes, all right, Mr. Peters.
From the class of 1969, and back then we did not have girls. And 10 years ago, the school leaped forward, and now there are girls. And I know that there's been that issue dealing with the balance, interaction, involvement of girls and boys. And I had a son who actually graduated in 2007, so he had some of the experience with girls. What kind of interaction is there at this point in time? I would imagine over time there's an evolution, sometimes a revolution. And in terms of classes, I know that there's interaction in terms of, chorus and plays and things like that. How about other student life?
So the question is about girls division and boys division interaction. I think both teams can play this one.
It's still pretty limited, I would say. I mean, we definitely, it's obviously all gender classes. We don't have classes. I think there's 1 or 2 classes that are combined just because of the amount of kids that are in the class. So occasionally there'll be girls that have to go to the boys division for a class if they're teachers at the boys division, and vice versa. So it's always funny when you see the poor lonely boy walking in the girls division. Your heart goes out to him. But, we can have lunch. We eat separately, but we can still go out on the green and mingle, but that normally only happens when you're freshmen. After that, you kind of let that one go. But you know what? I love it because I think it makes it special when you do get to see the boys at events like sports events and, homecoming and dances. I think it sort of makes it a special occasion when you get to see your guy friends and, you don't get bored of them. I mean, you don't see them every single day, and so at the same time, you still have great friendships with them, and you get really excited to see them because you don't get to see them all the time. So that's one of the things that I love most about it.
Do you guys want to add?
During track, the guys and girls, it's a co-ed sport, but even during track, it's still split up most of the time during warm-ups and right when we get ready to pray out, then that's when the guys and girls interact. But aside from that, it's still pretty much separated.
Yeah, kind of like what Missy said, like freshman year, you see the guys and the girls just awkwardly out there on the green, just standing next to each other. And like now that I'm a senior, you like look out the window and you see that and you just laugh to yourself because you're like, wow, was I really like that 4 years ago? and then I guess like now that I'm a senior, like our friendships with the girls have kind of been set in stone. Like we know who our friends are, and it's kind of like, we're still good friends, but like Missy said, we don't see each other every day, but it like when you do see them at basketball games or whatever, it's a lot of fun, good experience.
Mike, did you?
Yeah, not necessarily specifically for Missy, but for the three of you as well. I think everybody here is at least somewhat familiar with y'all's plans with respect to campaigning what's going to happen on campus. And I also know that you always consider the input of students, but I would like to know from the three of you, since 2 of y'all are graduating, one's still, an upperclassman. In your experience, what kind of things would you like to see change on campus if you had a decision to make?
So the question is for the students, what kind of changes would you like to see? There are some teachers here, so consider your answer carefully.
I mean, honestly, I can't really think of any. Like, I mean, there's been a lot of changes from when I was a freshman to now already that I think I'm kind of done with change for a little bit. I think that what this year, kind of what we had going on is the best, and it's kind of unfortunate that I'm only able to enjoy it for 1 year before I'm off to college. So I think that not any come to mind. So
I think, uh, I think, I would like to see the brotherhood and the sisterhood develop more, because during your freshman year, like it's really promoted, and all the freshmen are like, yes, brotherhood, sisterhood. But as you, during your sophomore year, junior year, and so on and so forth, like that idea is kind of lost, and it's lost in like sports and then academics, so you don't really see it as much. So if anything can be changed, I would like to see that developed more.
I think I agree with both the boys. I mean, from what I've experienced at Regis, I think that what they're doing is perfect, and there's so much that I love about it there. But in the same way, I think it would be nice to have the boys and girls division maybe do more events together. I mean, co-ed retreats. I mean, there's a bunch of options, but I think something that maybe just bonds us a little bit more together. I think this new Performing Arts Center is going to be awesome. I don't know what the area you guys are calling it, where all the students can go, and they're going to have the kitchen and the Raider shop, and where people can just go and sit. And I think that's going to be awesome that we can have that time to spend some time with them, because I know I would have liked to get to know a lot of the brothers in my class a lot more than I did, because I really didn't get to know a lot of them as well as I would have liked to. But when it comes to having an all-girl classroom and things like that, I love that, and I wouldn't change that, but I would have liked to get to know them a little bit more.
Adam might have a little bit to add from your position, as you've done a lot with media and working with boys and girls.
Yeah, teaching at both divisions for the last 3 years has been great, going back and forth. But I'd say, I'd go back to what the guys said about, and Missy said about the students sort of mingling on the green freshman year. It's an option for them at lunchtime to meet in one specific area of the campus. They can't go into the girls' courtyard. They can't come into the boys' courtyard or into the buildings during the school day unless they have a direct purpose to do so. Like a teacher sends you over there to do something, come back. But they have that option to meet on the green, and they're totally right. The younger students do that for a while, and it kind of fades away, and all those great things that we love about single gender education at either side sort of win out, because they realize how special it is to have that time with your brothers or your sisters, and they choose to stay apart. But I do advise clubs, some of them that over the years have been just boys and just girls, and clubs that are co-divisional, that during, before school, after school, publication nights that we have, till 10 p.m. at the school, putting the student news magazine together, where Missy was an editor on the paper last year. She knows what that's like, and we have food, and it's the boys and the girls that work together for that night, and then there are other managing editor meetings where the boys are all together and just the girls. But from my perspective, I think it's really the best of both worlds. I think, in graduating in '98, I think my group of friends and myself were very lucky, because we knew girls that went to other schools and that lived in our neighborhoods, and we would see them after school and on the weekends. I think the danger of what a all-boys school can turn out, and what I think in part that we turned out for years, were students who maybe went to school, went home to their house, maybe in the suburbs. The girls that they knew in their life were their mom and maybe their sister. They go to college, they don't know how to interact. So right now I see the brotherhood at Regis as strong as it ever has been, and the sisterhood likewise, but they have that opportunity. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, so they know how to develop relationships with the opposite sex that is not necessarily their mom or their sister. If they don't have, all right, that didn't come out. Friendships, excuse me, with, if the boys all those years didn't have that opportunity to get to know girls outside of class, and they were very in this bubble of this all-male world, I think it does, of all the great things that Jesuit education does, it does pose a danger for guys when they go out into the real world and have to make friends and work with girls in college and get to know women in their lives. So I think it really is the best of both worlds, and You know, I think it's awesome.
Yep, right before, I think she needs to leave, so last question.
I just want to say on behalf of all of us here, you made us proud as Americans, Coloradans, neighbors, and graduates, and for all of us who have daughters, you're amazing. I just want to
Thank you.
favorite experience in the Olympics.
Favorite experience at the Olympics. You know, I have to be honest. I think one of my favorite experiences was watching the Regis watch party that they had back home. I just started bawling. I mean, I got out of my first, my 100 back, and it was my first gold there. And before I even saw my parents' reaction, the first thing I saw was all my sisters and my brothers back home at the 9 News studio just going nuts. And that meant more to me than I can say. And that was just absolutely incredible to see that kind of support from back home, and knowing that that's exactly what they were doing in that second just meant more to me than anything. And then I saw my parents and started crying more. So, but yeah, it was just amazing having this kind of support.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. I think you got to go, but we're going to keep going with the rest of the panel, if that's all right by you guys. Any more questions? Oh, yes.
Mine's regarding science and technology. I know I graduated about 5 years ago, and technology especially was a little lacking at Regis. I'm wondering what outside of integrating iPads into the classroom is being done to prepare students for college. I've heard that computer literacy has been integrated with other classes, making it an even shorter class than it already was.
So the questions about technology at RJ and computer literacy and what we're doing to advance go forward. I guess Adam could, or do you want to go first, Father? But I guess, well, both of you could take it, but Adam would be able to talk about sort of what he's been doing with these fellows, and Phil could probably talk about our curriculum.
Well, I can't talk very intelligently about the curriculum in detail, but you know, a lot of what, in terms of our investment in technology in the last couple of years, has been in terms of infrastructure, in getting sufficient wireless into the buildings, that, you know, where we can transition into every kid having one or more devices, because they've all got iPhones as well as iPads and laptops and all that. So that's been a huge part of our investment. And we've also, another thing that we have invested in is personnel to be educational specialists in technology. And we have a part-time a teacher who roughly half the time in each division, one in boys and one in girls, whose job is to work with the faculty in training them and helping them in trying to shape the curriculum and move us forward. So those are the two things I would say, and then Adam and Tim might have some more.
Well, I think the changing nature of education isn't as changing as we think it is. I mean, the skills are there. The technology can help, but it can't always replace. So I think a lot of folks are afraid of the technology, that it will replace the skills that we're trying to learn. But I think what you said in your question was key, and that is that the technology and the digital citizenship and learning how to use the computer, and you know, we assume a lot of our kids are coming in knowing that and how to do it well. It's not the case. And it's our responsibility to teach them how to be responsible online and to be citizens in a digital world, and to be able to create and learn using technology. What you said was right, in that it's not necessarily a class that you take, here, go learn this, and then apply it in all your other classes throughout your years here at Regis. But what the schools that are very successful at integrating technology and in education, it's in every course, and it's throughout the curriculum, and it's a buy-in from the school and from the students, that part of the way we will teach will be expecting the students to use the skills that technology provides in order to do some of the traditional skills. as an aid, but not as to replace. And I think that's the way we're going, and I know the teachers are working hard to get there.
Yeah, I've always looked at kind of the tech side of education and the growing tech side of education as kind of a it's one more tool to use in the classroom. I feel like the students come with a certain set of skills, and the teachers have a certain set of skills, and that may or may not include technology. And personally, we opened up this year the use of all kinds of devices in the classroom, where before we had banned cell phones and that kind of stuff from the classroom, and now we have all of that available. And it has there's such a relaxation now with in terms of the tension of the moment, right? The kids know that they're free to access the world out there as they're sitting in the classroom. I personally am looking forward to the training that we are going to need, because I'm lacking myself. So I'm kind of relying on the teachers that are point people for the education, and then I also rely on the students. They bring a lot of skills to the table, and not all of them, but quite a few of them have some pretty significant knowledge in the tech world that I certainly don't have. And so it's good to see them bring that into the room, and they share it with the other kids. And it also kind of goes back to an earlier question about students who don't have the access to things that other students might have. And I think it's important to remember that the education of these students we can't focus on the tools, but on the underlying message that goes in the tool is just the delivery method of that. But I understand the tension that we have now is to educate these kids for the 21st century. And in many ways, Jesuit education, which is 500 years old, doesn't. We've got some catching up to do in that realm. But I'm kind of relying on the students to bring that in a little bit, and then as I catch up, I can kind of guide that a little bit more. So I'm really excited about the iPads in the classroom. I think the kids who use that kind of stuff now, the kids who use the technology in the room, I have students who record lectures, and they then can do all kinds of fun stuff with that, and then the students who create the projects and that kind of stuff. I think it's incredible what's out there that they can do, and as Adam pointed out, it's our job to kind of shepherd them through the responsible use of those things. And it's like learning how to drive or anything else, or learning how to be social with the opposite gender on the green. You have to kind of guide these kids through the proper ways to do those things, and hope for the best at the end of the day. So,
guys, do you have anything to say about that? Okay. We'll take a couple more, and then we might break up, and we can do you can approach people individually and have another slice of pizza. But Mr. Clausen.
I don't have a question, but actually just in reference to that, I teach all juniors at Regis. I graduated in '98, and one thing, I love that we are trying to inform ourselves as to how best to integrate technology. But another thing that I'm equally as proud of, especially in the theology department on both sides, is that we're critical of that technology. There's some disturbing research suggesting that constant connectivity impacts some very important things, especially from the Jesuit perspective, like sympathy and empathy, and your ability to feel what a brother, right, or a sister is feeling. So in my class, there is actually no technology allowed in the classroom as far as the children and what devices they have in front of them. Outside of the classroom, my entire class is run through Edmodo, which is an online learning utility where everything that they turn in is submitted to there, everything that I grade is submitted to there. But I think it's really important that we not just rush in blindly. I'm far less optimistic about the iPad program, and I think that's important, that there is that kind of dissenting voice that says, we shouldn't just assume that because this is the way the world is going, that this is the way it should be going. And I'm not saying that technology is something we should ban, but I have found in my class, since instituting just this year, kind of a moratorium, right, an 80-minute moratorium every 2 days on technology, that the students have responded very positively. I have one class where there's a bin at the front, and it's totally optional if they put their devices in there. They can't use them one way or another, but it's optional whether they put them in there. And this class, it is full of everything you could imagine, and they look forward to putting it in there, and they look forward to the opportunity to engage, one-to-one with actual human beings. So I think that needs to be said anytime the technology piece comes up.
Great, thanks. We still have books at Regis.
Well, books, the it's not unusual for kids to have a bill of $700 or $800 for books for a year. I mean, you could almost buy 2 iPads for that. So, you know, that's another factor that, I mean, that's kind of the part of this that's going to happen no matter what. But I appreciate.
Publishing rights are ridiculous, though, so it'd be very difficult. I mean, we just made a reader for this year that we got just the print rights, and we asked, you know, for those students who would prefer to access digitally, how would we get this same reader that we just, you know, gotten all the copyrights for in print? What would that look like if we were to go digital? And it was about 10 times what it was in print. So, I mean, there's that piece of it too.
Yes. The question is, do we publish a printed yearbook? The answer is yes. Does anyone want to elaborate?
2 of them.
2 of them. There is a girls division and a boys division. Yeah.
Just 2, period. That's really
No, there are 2 yearbooks. The girls division has their yearbook and the boys division.
But you know, it's something that we look at. You look at the budget line, and it's like over $50,000 to do that. I think it's not cheap at all. So I mean, I think we have to keep asking the question, you know, what's the best and most responsible way to do some of these things?
We also print the student news magazine in print 3 times a semester, and the students, because they're so inundated with technology anyway, they really appreciate having that to hold and to read. And you know, high school publications might save the print industry. Well, at least in very small towns.
I think we have an internet question, speaking of technology.
We do. Specific question from Scott Petrie from the class of 05, who wants to know from Father Phil what can be attributed to the recent success in athletics. But then also there's been some other buzz, maybe to hear from the 2 students about, you know, what that athletic success kind of means to the student body.
Okay, so the question is about athletic success and how that's affected the student body also.
You know, I wish I could take credit for it. You know, I do think there's a couple of things we've tried, especially in the boys division, to get as many in-building head coaches as possible, and I think that really does make a difference, because when the coaches know the kids on other levels than just on the playing field or the court, I think he or she is much more able to get the most out of them and keep everything in proper perspective. So, and then, you know, success feeds on itself. I think that's the other thing. We get incredible, not just Missy, but, you know, all of our sports get really good publicity. And, you know, the kids, we can talk forever about the current state of athletics and what's happened to it and the kind of commitment that's needed to, at least in a lot of people's minds, to succeed in a sport, that you have to play it all year round and all that. But you know, we do draw kids who want to be part of a winning program. There's no doubt about that. But I turn it over to the student athletes.
I think the main thing is pride. Like I don't know before I was a student here how the school spirit was, but me being a rowdy now and rowdying basketball games, like you go and it'll be like a Tuesday night and it's just packed with students and it's ridiculous. And for basketball games, and like you see, you know, our basketball team, you see like, you know, Josh Perkins just dunking it, and it's ridiculous. And it's so much fun to watch, because I think that, you know, coming with that is with like that athleticism is like also like the class that we have is Regis. Like when I would be on the football field, like you would hear the most awful things about the guys saying, you know, I don't really want to talk about it, but like, and then we would win a game and stuff, and then, you know, there's like virtually, you know, no trash talk or anything like that. And I think that really says a lot about us as a student body, that, you know, we can be good, you know, athletes, and then we can also be good people as part of that. So
I would add to that. I coached soccer for about 15 years, and I coached cross country, and I feel like high school age athletics is moving in a direction that is about the end result that 98% of these kids are never going to realize, of some kind of achievement that they'll get when they're 25 or something. Most of us are never going to get there, and not because of lack of trying, but just because of genetics or whatever it might be. But I feel like Regis, in particular, I was chatting with a friend, a colleague who's a coach as well, and he was lamenting the fact that, a lot of kids in his particular program are going the club route, and that the clubs are putting a real burden on high school athletics and telling kids that they can't play high school athletics and they can't, or they can only do it if they make varsity or something like that. And the counter to that was that I feel like at Regis we provide a harbor from a lot of that societal nonsense of you have to be the best. I think we provide an opportunity for these kids to achieve something that they really want to achieve, which is the best that they can possibly be in an environment where they're supported and loved, and they're around other people, like was just iterated, that they're around other people who love and support them as well, to be the best that they can possibly be, whether that's state champion or making the C team on a soccer program. I think I love the fact that we create that environment at Regis, and then coupled with the fact that we're also really successful in most of our athletic endeavors. I think it breeds that real sense of belonging to something, and I think that's what high school athletics provide, is belonging to something and a camaraderie that comes with being in a classroom that's outside on a field, and you're learning and you're with people that you respect and you're with good coaches. And we do a tremendous job with our coaches. I think they get the message of what we're trying to do, and it's an extension of the classroom. And I really think that in a lot of ways club athletics miss that. The kids don't get that. And so we provide that for them at Regis Jesuit. And that makes me really proud of all of our athletics. I think it's fantastic what we do. So anyway, it was a pleasure to coach in all of our programs, and because we got the kids who were just committed to being, they just wanted to be around each other, and they wanted to help each other, and it was just a really neat environment. So I'm glad that we get that on all levels.
I think we have time for about one more, and then we can break up and hang out a little bit together. Well, I don't know. You already had one, Maxfield. Go ahead.
Except for guys dunking, we didn't have that. We had good pride.
It's true. We weren't dunking. Yeah.
I think Caleb could touch the net.
Brian, does anybody else who has not asked a question yet have you have the floor? No, Mr. Martorella.
Question for John and Father Phil. From the 5 or 10 year plan department, what do you guys want to see change or improve? Are there things other than let's keep Regis going the strong way it is? What's on the list of priorities for 5 or 10 years down the road to change?
The question is for the 5 or 10 year plan, which is a nice future oriented way to end things. Thank you, Brian.
I think if I could change the word change, I don't know how much change we want. I think what we would like to do is push Regis, both the co-divisional model. We're 2 divisions and we're 1 school. What I think we want to do is push that design, that co-divisional model forward. It's been going for 10 years. There's a lot of things that we can tweak, and I think by building this Performing Arts Center and the Student Commons, that's just one element of it. We're going to meet at our retreat here in a couple months and talk about that, where we want to go to and where do we want to, what do we think that needs to be improved, or what do we sustain at Regis to make us one of the best high schools in the state of Colorado. And that's really it. We're losing a great student who was up here today and a great athlete, but let's face it, there's a lot of Missy Franklins at Regis. She is a reflection of all the kids at our school. And I think that's what we got to keep up. We got to keep that type of person at our school through the next 10 years and build a strong kid coming in so that they can be a strong adult going out.
I'm in my 7th year as president, and right before I came on board, the board went through an extensive strategic planning process, and I think it's, as we have as we build our new building and get to the end of this campaign, I think it's time for another round of strategic planning to ask that question in a formal way. Where do we want to go? What are our priorities looking at the next 5 and 10 years? We have a campus master plan in terms of buildings, but the more important questions are in terms of our curriculum, in terms of our development. I think working on a financial model that's going to be sustainable. I think I mentioned the Chinese. I think we need to look at our language programs and say what languages are going to open the most doors for kids going forward. Where's that whole technology piece? Obviously, I mean, when you think about how fast things are changing, what's it going to look like in 5 and 10 years, and what do we need to prepare kids for? So there's all kinds of things I think that we need to step back and ask that question. I mentioned endowment. I think that's a huge thing that needs to, I'd be really disappointed if 5 and 10 years from now our endowment isn't significantly bigger than it is. So those are a few things, but I also say that as an invitation to some of you who may want to be part of that effort, or at least put yourself out there and say, I'd be willing to consider being part of that committee if you need me. We need to have a balance between alums, faculty, parents, maybe even some students and so on. But that's going to be something that I foresee happening in the next school year.
Great, thank you, Father. I think our panel deserves a big round of applause. I think we still have a little time left on the clock here, so there's plenty of pizza. If you haven't met John Jackson, the Vice President for Advancement, he's a nice guy, so go ahead and shake his hand later. Thank you all for coming. Some of these guys might be around to answer more one-on-one type questions, and I will be. So, all right, thanks for coming, everybody.